Hi, this is Kathy J. Perry, an author of children's and teen books, and you can check out my website at kathyjperry.com. And today we're welcoming Annette Garber from Pennsylvania, and I'm going to let her speak to you now, and she's going to tell us a little bit about who she is, where she's from, and who these books are for. Hi, Annette.
Hi, Kathy. Thank you so much for inviting me on today.
You're welcome.
So as Kathy said, I live in Pennsylvania, Berks County, also known as originally Lenni Lenape land. And I live in an old farmhouse with my family. I have two teenagers, and we overlook, looking right now from my sunroom view, we overlook a creek, and our neighbors are really families of deer and the blue herons and lots of songbirds and squirrels, and it's a place I find a lot of inspiration from. So yeah, some of the things I do, I'm an educator by training, and right now I work with local college community students. I teach tutoring them mostly as a writing coach in Reading, the city that we live right on the outskirts of. We have a lot of immigrants, a large immigrant community. So we do a lot of
Immigrants from
lots of places, but primarily Central America, Puerto Rico, Dominican Republic, a lot of Spanish speaking. So our community college, it's very supportive in offering English classes to the community and affordable education. So I love it there. It's a great job.
I have a friend who is an author too, and she has some bilingual children's books that you might be interested in.
Oh, that's
Yeah,
wonderful.
we'll talk about that later.
Awesome. Mm-hmm.
Okay, so what about this book? This is her most recent book, Quite the Same.
Mm-hmm.
Can you tell us who this book is for, why we should read it, and maybe read a little bit of it?
Yeah, I'd love to. So, yeah, Quite the Same. I wrote this book actually when my children were young, and it sat on my computer for a long, long time until I found an illustrator and decided to go forward. But um, it's the story. It's of a magic letter that travels all around the globe to 7 different children living in 7 different places. I'll show you a little snapshot of all of the children. And really, the purpose of this book is to highlight some of the different experiences that children around the world might be going through, some challenges. So there's a refugee, a child who's living in a refugee camp. There is a child living in an orphanage. All those things are really delved into very gently for young children. I've written this for, I'd say, grades K through 5 really are the ones that seemed it's best fitted for. And so this letter visits each child and cheers them up basically and encourages them to send these encouraging words along to the next child on their journey. And the reason it's called Quite the Same, even though it's focusing on celebrating difference and diversity, it's also about the commonality of human emotion. You know, we all deal with sadness or loneliness or fear. Right. And so, yeah, would you like me to read the first couple pages and introduce you to the letter?
That would be great. Thank you.
Okay, so we begin with this young lady, Emma. I'm Emma from America, and I just turned 11. I've been sitting in a wheelchair since I was only 7. There was an accident, you see, and I haven't been the same. I cannot walk or run or splash in puddles when it rains. I used to love to swim, do gymnastics and ballet. I got dressed all by myself, walked to the park on sunny days. Sometimes when I am bored, I feel sorry for myself. But today, while in my bedroom, I found this note upon my shelf. And here's where I introduce the letter. I do not know your name or the color of your eyes. I wonder what makes you laugh. I wonder what makes you cry. Maybe you are tall or short, black or white or brown. Do you live in a big city or in a little town? All I really want to say is that I care. It's true that sometimes I feel lonely and sad and angry too. And if I lived beside you, I'd come to know your name. You'd be my friend and I'd be yours. We're really quite the same. So close your eyes, because here's a hug. It's sent from me to you. And share this with another who's sad and lonely too.
That's great.
And you can see at the bottom of the letter, as we go on, you'll see Emma folds the letter. There's little geography lessons you can pull out of this story as we watch it float from one continent to another. And then each child who receives the letter puts a special marking of their own to kind of symbolize their personal journey. And it makes its way all the way back to the first little girl who would have sent the letter.
Cool. That's neat. And then do they write something too?
So the letter stays the same.
Okay.
They just add their little pictures on.
Okay. Oh, okay.
Yep. And
But
then,
you have in the story the things that they say.
yes. Each child is highlighted kind of what they're dealing with, what they're struggling with. And then they receive the letter in some fashion, sometimes through a message in a bottle, or a peace dove delivers one into Palestine to a little girl who's dealing with issues there. So yeah.
Okay. And so what inspired you to write it?
Well, I remember sitting at my kitchen table one time, one day, just feeling, thinking about children around the world. And there was probably a specific situation, I can't recall that now, but just thinking, if I could send a letter to every child dealing with whatever they're dealing with, what would I want to say to them? And it almost began as a prayer. And as I started writing, it kind of became poetic with this rhyme scheme. And as I was writing it, I thought, man, I think this could be a children's book. I honestly didn't even sit down intending to write a children's book, but it kind of developed into that. And yeah, that's where.
Isn't that neat that it can like take you on its own? Like it takes you on a trip.
It totally took me on a trip. In fact, finding my illustrator is another cool story in one of these, like, if I can share that real quick.
Yes, please.
Because I think I need to introduce. So my the illustrator is Allison Rich. You can actually find her on AllisonRichArt.com. She's a freelance artist and also an early childhood educator. And so I first was trying to reach out. I started with a close girlfriend, a cousin, people who I kind of knew dabbled in art. Would you be interested in illustrating this? Would you be interested in illustrating this? My daughter at the time was only about 6, 7 years old. She said, "Mommy, can I illustrate it?" And I did let her draw a few pictures back then. And eventually, actually, all of the illustrations in the margins are my daughter's drawings. So she does get her fingerprints on this a little bit. But nothing was working out, and I kind of just let it go, stopped trying to make it happen. And the one day I was on Facebook and I saw a picture on my friend's Facebook page. She had posted, it was a sketch of a little girl holding the earth in her arms, and her hair was all flutter. And I was like, oh, I really like that picture. Oh, I really like that picture. And it was this like light bulb moment, like that is the style I've been looking for. And I texted my friend and I said, who drew this drawing? And do you think this person would be interested in illustrating a children's book? And she said, oh, that's my daughter who lives in Chicago. Oh. And you should definitely reach out to her. I reached out to her. I said, I'm writing my first book. I'm planning on offering the proceeds, so I can't even give you much, but would you be interested in partnering with me? And she said, "It's been my dream to illustrate children's books, and I love the mission of the book. Yes, I'm on."
Cool. Yay.
I know. Very cool.
Oh, so the proceeds, tell us about what happens to those.
Yeah, so I decided that this first book, my book, I would donate the proceeds to International Justice Mission. And that is one of the leading organizations combating human trafficking and bonded labor around the world. Um, I learned about them when I was a new parent, after learning about sex trafficking. I didn't even know that was a thing. I didn't grow up with any awareness around that. And I remember when I first learned about it, feeling utterly overcome, overwhelmed, like this is the worst
How
thing
can
I
this even
ever
happen? How can
could
this
ever
be?
imagine.
Mm-mm.
And I think and also helplessness, like what in the world could I do about this? So when I learned about International Justice Mission, um, it brought hope for the first time around this issue. International Justice Mission works in 13 countries, including the United States. And what I love about them is they are a completely holistic, they have a completely holistic approach. So they are not only rescuing victims, but they offer restoration, trauma healing, job placement, or job training. They stay with rescued victims until they are ready to be on their own or with their family again. Um, they also prosecute criminals, because you rescue some people, these criminals will continue to find new people to use and abuse. And so they bring criminals to justice, and they do a lot of work around strengthening the laws, police training, human rights lawyers, to change so that there's more accountability and better laws, especially in some countries where a lot of these things just are allowed. So
Wow,
they're just a really full cycle
that's great.
organization. Mhm.
And that's kind of how I met you, is through my daughter, who also does something to fight or to help with the Arise box.
Yes,
Mhm.
yes,
So,
which I'm a huge fan of, and I would encourage anyone to subscribe to an Arise box, because it is the most fun way to support victims of trafficking, for
mhm.
sure. Mhm.
So, okay. Um, is there anything else you would like to talk about, like maybe an upcoming book or anything?
Sure. So, um, I've before I do that, I did want to just share real quick, real briefly, that if you have any like educators or librarians or even parents
Mhm.
watching, so this was my second edition, and I added a few things that I just want to share real quick.
Okay.
Like, so I have a letter from the author at the end, and I have questions for readers that are just to deepen, kind of like follow-up activities you could do with
Right.
children. And there's lots of things you can do depending on the age. I almost always, when I do readings, invite children to make cards, building on the theme of words have power and our words can lift people's spirits.
I really
So
like this one that says words are very powerful. Our words can encourage and bring joy. They can also hurt if used carelessly. And then there's some questions on how you can put that into action. And I think that's great. It's true.
absolutely,
Words and stories can change lives for the good or the bad.
100%, 100%. And so I like to give kids an opportunity to respond to that immediately. If I do a reading, I always bring craft supplies. We make cards, and then I send them, or the teachers can send them to Cards for Hospitalized Kids. There's actually an organization that will deliver them to children in the hospital. That's something you can do with every age. So that's a really fun response. But I will show you real quick. My Allison Rich is in process right now illustrating my second children's book. I'll show you the cover page. It's called Carrie,
Uh-huh.
and this is a story
Hmm.
about a little girl who meets an old man who's trying to carry all the world's problems on his shoulders, and he's overwhelmed, and this little girl comes along, and she invites him to carry the world in her heart. And so there's an invitation here for children to kind of ask, well, what's my piece? How can I, especially issues of like taking care of the earth and things like that. So I won't say too much more about that yet, but that is on the horizon and I'm super excited about it.
You think that'll be this year or next year?
I think it'll be this year. Yeah, she's almost finished with the illustration process. So I'm hoping to get that printed this summer.
Maybe we can talk again.
I would love that.
Okay. Yeah, we'll talk again when you launch it.
Awesome. I would love that.
That'd be great. Okay. And so we can find out more about you at your website, right? And
Yes.
contact you if we want to.
Absolutely.
And so that's just your name, AnnetteGarber.com.
Yes.
That's easy. I'll put that in my blog and it'll be in the notes. So
wonderful. And there's a link under my book tab with quite the same. If anyone's interested in purchasing books, that will take you to the Amazon link where you could.
So we buy it through Amazon. You don't have a store.
I do not have a store, no.
Okay.
Although I fill the orders myself. So people could also reach out to me individually if they want to buy past Amazon and I will mail it to you.
Okay. Okay. Great. All right. Well, thank you for taking this time this morning. You have a wonderful day and I love your house and what I can see of it.
Oh, thank you so much, Kathy. So good to meet you.
I would love to visit sometime.
Anytime. I'd love to have you.
Okay. Well, thank you so much and have a great day.
You too.
Okay. Bye.
Bye.